Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lifestyle with Dr. Moby. I'm Dr. Moby, and today we have great guest all the way from Connecticut. Let's welcome Boomer.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Moby.
Thank you, sir, for coming. So tell us about yourself, sir.
Yeah, so as you said, from Connecticut. My name is Boomer. I am 29 years old, and I am, both an in-person and online fitness trainer, primarily online. And how I got started in that, just to give you the Spark Notes version, not to bore people, but like most guys, at least in the United States, around the teenage years, I started lifting a little bit to look good for the females. And I noticed when I started lifting in those first few, well, even before that, I always had some type of knee problems or spraining ankles, and I always had some type of, pain or discomfort in my body. And as I started lifting, right off the bat, that started to get better. But over time, it got worse and worse, where there were days I'd get up, and if I didn't stretch for 2, 3 hours a day, um, the pain was just terrible. Like I couldn't play sports anymore, in my young 20s without having to stretch for 30 minutes when, my friends could just be on the beach and get up and start playing volleyball or something. And so in my early 20s, I decided, because I was into fitness, I was going to become a personal trainer. So I got certified as a trainer. I started working out at a gym. And back then, it turned out that just having a passion for fitness wasn't enough to make you a good trainer. So back then, I was a pretty poor trainer, not very good. And because I wasn't very good, I lost interest in it, and I pursued a different career. But fast forward a few years, I realized that, you know, even though I wasn't pursuing it as a career, I still spent all of my free time just researching anything that had to do with health or fitness.
Mhm.
And a few years back, I decided, you know what, like, let me give this a go, because I do know I am truly passionate about it. And given, almost a decade of more learning, now I actually know what the heck I'm doing and how to be a good coach. So I started the Healthy Movement Blueprint, which is like I said, online and in person fitness company that is designed to help people with pain or discomfort get out of pain and get in better shape and live pain free. So yeah, I've been doing it for a couple years now, and I absolutely love it. It's, most people, when they hear a fitness trainer, they think gaining muscle or losing fat, and yes, that's a component of it, and yes, that's what I do. But I also focus a lot on the movement and mobility aspect to help people live a pain-free life.
Okay, so that is very interesting. A couple of things you said, and I would like to kind of explore more. One is you said you were into fitness, which is great thing, and you wanted to look good with girls, and that's great. But also you said something is that there is a difference between doing yourself and coaching others.
Mhm.
So so what did you really find that different about, like, what was things you were doing before versus then now?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think this is a very big problem in the training industry, especially online, because it's become this, new sexy thing to be an online fitness trainer, uh,
Okay.
especially since the pandemic started. And I think the same problem I had, which is what most people had, is there is a difference between being passionate about your own health and fitness versus being passionate about coaching somebody else.
Mm.
So I was into making my own routines and hitting, new PRs in the gym, and counting my macros. But then, just the application of teaching somebody else how to do that
Mhm.
is much more difficult than people even realize. To teach them how to do it, but also help them stay consistent. But it's just, for a lot of people, it doesn't turn out to be as exciting as it was when you were doing it yourself. So
Mhm.
it is different, com- coaching versus doing it yourself. But what changed for me, which is now I'm into it, is as I mentioned, which I sort of skipped over, I always had pain back then, even when I was working out. But
Mhm.
through that nearly decade of research, I realized it wasn't, working out wasn't the end all be all of living a pain free life. You have to work out correctly, especially some people just happen to have, limited mobility restrictions just naturally compared to other people. Just outside of the gym, some people live very sedentary lives, which then, creates more imbalances and restrictions in the body. And so learning how to work out in a manner that would help my joints and my muscles be more mobile and just be healthier, uh, that was the switch of what made me want to help people do that as well, because I know what it's like to literally not be able to walk without having some type of hip or knee pain. So knowing that other people might be dealing with pain, it is a passion of mine to help them get out of that pain.
Okay, very nice, very nice. So also tell me a little bit about, a couple of things with COVID. With COVID, there's, like you said, a lot of online thing has started, and now it's the new sexy thing. So tell me about that. What's your experience now with, were you doing more online before COVID or after COVID?
Yeah, no, the online has definitely blown up, not just for me, but for um, many trainers, because a lot of people, out of snap of a finger, the gyms were closed, and a lot of people had no way of work, or at least no understanding of how to work out without a gym.
Mm.
So there was definitely a a larger demographic to deal with, because before this, I was, as I said, I've only been doing this again, the second time around, for a couple of years. So I was still pretty new into it before
Mhm.
all of the lockdowns and everything. Um, almost a full year in, but I'd imagine that there just wasn't as many people that were interested, because they were think, oh, online, I'm not actually physically with a trainer. Like,
Mm.
how is that going to work? But once you give it a shot, you realize it can work, and it actually, in many ways, is better than in-person training. Uh, if for no other reason, just the convenience factor of being able to train at whatever time works for you. So when I say online training, I'm not working out on like a video with the person. I create workouts, I create videos so they know what to do, and then they do them whatever time is convenient for them that day. So that's what I mean by online training, and so it can be very very convenient that way.
Mm. And that is very interesting thought. You said you don't just kind of put your videos out and say, watch it and then I'll talk to you or whatever. But you are into more into one to one, and basically you're putting your video for that specific workout. Also, maybe vice versa, you're recording there and telling this is what you're doing wrong, right?
Mhm.
Or maybe this could be done this way, right? So there's more interactive format here, right?
Yeah, yeah. And of course, as I said, there are a lot of positives to doing the online thing. The negatives is not actually being there, being able to correct someone's form. And because my style of training isn't solely about gaining muscle or losing fat, it's about getting out of pain. When you're getting out of pain, the way you move, especially when it comes to back pain or any pain, but back pain primarily too, it's the way you move in the gym, also outside of the gym, has a big role in um, getting rid of that pain and preventing it from coming back. So when people do send me videos of them working out, yes, I will send videos back, helping them correct their form.
And that is also very important, that there is there is also pros and con about, of course, hands on, but I think other important thing which I find with fitness and lifestyle always is that you have to have a discipline. You need to have routine, whatever routine. You can do 5 minute, 10 minute, 30 minute, 40 minute, whatever, but you need to have a program, and then you need to keep doing every day, or certain routine you need to follow. Not just show up for. I'm sure you've seen a lot of people. They get encouraged by doing these. They watch these videos and they show up with the trainer, and then they don't show up for next 4 weeks.
Oh yeah, and it's not. When people work with a trainer, it's usually because a lack of understanding of what to do, or probably even more common is just a lack of self accountability or consistency. So that's why coaches are so great, because even if you know what to do, if you're not
Yeah.
doing it, the knowledge is useless.
Mm.
So having someone to help keep you assistant and accountable is probably just as valuable as the knowledge they bring of what to do.
And I went through. I lost myself 100 pounds, and then 4 or 5 years ago, and I to this day I've kept it down. I do walk. I don't do a lot of weightlifting, but what I have seen is that you're right. The coach was, although I didn't have coach like but I had somebody mentor or advisor to me, which I used to show up every week. Exactly right. I knew what to do, but because I knew that I had to show up there in front of her or him, then or in my case, then I was more motivated to produce the results or at least do my homework, right? So when I show up, I don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. And that's also amazing that you lost all that weight. But something you said that I want to highlight that is a big misconception for people is uh, exercise is movement. A lot of people, when they hear exercise, they automatically think, oh, I have to be in the gym and lifting weights. Uh, for just general health, just move your body. Like that's what you need.
Yes,
Of course, if you have specific goals, if it is some type of like back pain, of course, there's specific things you need to do to help get rid of it. Or,
that's
if
true.
you're, yeah, if you're trying to do a bodybuilding show, of course, you need, specific workouts. But just for general health, exercise is just movement. That's all it is.
Mm. And that is true. So the biggest disease we have is called sitting disease, where people sit for hours and do nothing. And a lot of my patients, they say, "Oh, doc, I'm getting older, and I'm not." I say, "Well," they say, "I wish we look like kids." I say, "Have you ever seen kids sitting for long?" And nowadays, maybe they do sit, but I said, kids are moving every 5 minutes. They have so much energy, and they're just kind of bouncing all that energy. So I say, I wish we adults even move, will be like them too. I mean, not like them, but at least will be as healthier, way healthier, and we feel younger. Because I think the problem is with adults is they sit on somewhere and they don't want to move
Yeah. And
at
a
all.
lot of people I work with is my main demographic is people that work desk jobs. So they're sitting all day and then they eventually develop back pain. And that's usually the main culprit of how the back pain starts is you sit all these hours and then your hip flexors get very tight. So then it pulls your hips out of alignment. And now, it's a chain reaction. And the next thing you know, even when you're not sitting, just when you're performing basic movements, whether it is just walking or whether, it's bending down to pick something up, you can't do it the way your body used to. And now you're putting pressure on your spine, whether it's in lumbar flexion or extension, and that's how the pain starts and is created. Yeah, I think it's been highlighted to an extent over the last 3, 4, 5 years that sitting sitting at least for extended hours comes with some consequences, but I don't think it could be highlighted enough that we need to move our bodies more just as a society in general.
And that's true. Also, tell me, because now since we have you, is some general things which anybody could do. A for back pain, for other is shoulder pain with computers, neck pain, C spine, and So some of the tips you can share with these.
Mhm. Yeah. So first, I will give What's rules of thumb I like to use for people that do sit, uh, which can just help in general. Which the first one is for every hour you sit, and I got this from a company called the Foot Collective. By the way, I don't want to take credit, but for every hour you sit, stretch your hip flexors for 1 minute. So a hip flexor stretch is people probably have seen is people in a half kneeling position, keeping the glutes tight and then kind of leaning forward a bit from the hips to feel a stretch. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google hip flexor stretch. So for every 1 hour you sit, do 1 minute of a hip flexor stretch that day. So if you sit for 10 hours, stretch your hip flexors for 10 minutes. Rule number two is for every 20 minutes you sit, and this number could vary from 15 to 30 minutes, but I like to just go with 20 minutes. For every 20 minutes you sit, get up and do some type of movement for anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes. Of course, that breaks up the sitting, and that movement you do can just help, especially if you're doing some type of mobility drills, can help reset the body. And then number three, and this is emphasized, especially if you're not getting up and moving every 20 minutes, just every 10 to 20 minutes, change the position in which you are sitting in. So if you're sitting in your normal uh, position, maybe for the next 10 minutes, cross one leg over the other. Uh, 10 minutes after that, do the opposite leg over the other. Next one, maybe go into a half kneeling stance. So just constantly switching those positions can really help. So those are some rules of thumb I like to use for when you're sitting a lot. Uh, Now getting into a bit more of a exercise or movement based. This can help for the entire spine, but especially with low back pain. The quote unquote recipe I like to tell people is one, mobilize both the hips and the upper back, the thoracic region. Of course, both as well as the lumbar region, the low back, are all supposed to be mobile and be able to move. But because we sit so much with rounded posture as well, our upper backs get very tight, our hips get very tight, and of course, if both areas are tight and they can't move, now our low back is doing a lot of the movement for them. So mobilize the hips and the upper back. Number two is strengthen both the glutes and the midsection, or we'll just call it the core for some simplicity's sake. The glutes should be some of our strongest muscles in our body, but again, because we sit, they tend to be very weak and quote unquote not active, so they're not firing or doing their work. And if that's happening, what happens is the muscles below, which are the hamstrings and calves, and the muscles above in the low back end up doing a lot of their work, and that's why so many people will have tight calves because when they're going for walks or runs, their glutes aren't doing their job, so the calves take over. Of course, if the low back is doing the work of the glutes, then those muscles are going to be stressed as well. So strengthening those as well as the midsection. Of course, if the midsection strong, it just allows you to do pretty much anything in a more stable position. And then the last one is just optimize your movement positions. The amount of people that don't understand how to hip hinge, which is simply just pushing your hips backwards with a straight back, is astounding. I almost never see anyone when they're going to pick something up off the ground move from the hips and knees. It's almost always straight legs and rounding the back. And you do that over and over and over again. It's no wonder so many people end up with back pain and disc bulges and whatnot. So if you can mobilize the hips and the upper back, if you can strengthen the glutes and the core, and if you can learn to move the body more efficiently, not that those other ways aren't efficient, but you know, if you're always moving like that, they become inefficient. So moving the body more efficient. If you do those three things, that can help most people get out of back pain.
Okay, very nice, very nice. Also, what about neck pain and this upper shoulder area?
hmm Yeah, well, the uh, thoracic mobility will definitely help with that.
Mhm.
If your upper back and the thoracic region is stiff, your shoulders are probably these more specifically the scapulars are probably not able to move in the way they need to. So mobilizing those and pretty much everything I also just mentioned can help because if anything, in the low back or the hips is off, that could still affect the upper back and shoulders. But still, definitely mobilizing that upper back. That's always where I would start. Um, Let me think of some more practical tips. So something that helps a lot of people that have neck pain
Mhm.
is a trick where you roll up a towel, not too thick, maybe around the size of a soda can, and just
Okay.
lay down, put it under your neck, and just relax for anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes. Start, of course, lower. That helps a lot of people get out of um, pain in the neck. It can kind of just realign the spine and yeah, just strengthening those posterior muscles, the muscles in the back, more specifically the rotator cuff and real delt area, will help pull those shoulders back, pull everything in alignment, and then when everything's in alignment, of course, you'll be able to move more. Once again, efficiently. Not that the other ways are absolutely wrong, but and that can.
Mhm.
The biggest thing I will say about any of this, though,
Mhm.
which is definitely a problem, is because we have so many people that are just not patient,
Yeah.
is it can take time to correct whatever needs to be corrected in order to get out of pain or reach whatever goal you have. So even if you do all these things, for some people you do them for a couple of weeks, you might feel much better. For some people, they may need to do these for months and months, maybe even years, before you really start to feel better and completely get rid of pain or again whatever the goal is. So patience is probably number one, and consistency, of course, number one at the top of the list.
Okay. Also, I would like to ask you. You mentioned a little bit about glutes, and you said for glutes, if its glutes are should be strongest, but they get weaker because we're sitting most of the time. So, what are some common things they can exercise wise they could do for glutes?
Yeah. So the glute bridge, which is the exercise, let me see if I could describe it. If you lay on your back with your knees bent at around a 90-degree angle, so the feet are on the ground, and you simply just thrust your hips up. So lift the hips up. So you're almost from your knees to your shoulders is almost in a straight line. Of course, lifting the hips up while contracting the glutes. That's a great way to get the glutes firing. The key with that, though, just like any other movement, is actually doing it with intention. A lot of people, when they do a glute bridge, more specifically single leg, which will really show some type of imbalance. Because let's face it, when most people sit, we're usually not sitting with good posture. We might be leaning one way. And so we develop some type of imbalance. So one side might be stronger than the other. But if you go into a single glute bridge, so just one leg at a time, you want to make sure you're feeling it in the glute. If you're feeling it in the low back, that means you're in a anterior pelvic tilt. So your hips are tilting forward. You want to tilt them the opposite way. If not neutral, even in a posterior pelvic tilt will help you feel it in the glute more. If you're feeling it in the hamstring or the quad, that's you still could have good position, but that could also just mean that your glutes simply aren't firing. So making sure you're actually feeling it in the glutes. One way that will help do that a lot is, well, I guess two ways, is using one of those resistance bands that goes around your knees and pushing out against it will automatically help uh, get the glutes firing. And also doing it on whether it's a bench that you find in a gym, a couch, the side of a bed, putting your upper back on the edge of it will, for most people, for whatever reason, helps you feel it a little bit more. Um, I guess from the range of motion you're going with. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure why, but getting that band around your legs and just doing some type of hip thrust or glute bridge will definitely help strengthen those glutes and help you understand what it actually feels like when they are engaging.
Yeah, but thank you for clarifying that. And I think those are wonderful tips. Even I did not realize that, with the glutes sitting for a long time, they could get weaker and weaker. And then we have a lot of back problems. Well, thank you for sharing all those tips. So, also, any final advice you have for somebody who is starting or contemplating to start?
I mean, anyone that's thinking about starting is just consider your health. Like, especially with everything we're going through right now, you're seeing the number one risk factor of death from COVID is obesity. Not to mention high blood pressure, diabetes. All these things that exercise can help with a lot are all up there. So consider your health, consider your future. If you're young now, and you're having kids, you don't want to be one of those parents that can't play with their kids growing up because they're in back pain or they're too out of shape or they can't play for more than 30 seconds without being out of breath. So just consider that, and then make the investment for a coach, because a lot of people have the fear of investing in a coach and paying the money. But if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right and get the results.
And that is good that once you get kind of the blueprint and you're actually website or Insta is healthy movement blueprint. That is important. Once you get the blueprint from a coach like Boomer, then you will be doing really well. And it's important. We all need help and we all need guidance. And that once we get these kind of concept clear, then I'm sure you'll have great success. So don't set up for failure and try to kind of take away of the coach role, because this can really cause a lot of problem for anyone. So with that in mind, keep watching our shows as well as check out Boomer's Insta, and also you have services beyond Connecticut or just Connecticut area?
Services beyond what?
Beyond your state, or do you
Oh,
give?
I work with people all over the world.
Oh, okay, perfect. So anybody who's watching all over the world, which we are in 130 countries, so anybody can check his Insta, send him message. A great guy, and you can definitely learn a lot. And take care. Thank you, sir, for coming to our show.